Welcome to the Wholehearted Impact podcast with Jen Majors, where we talk about healing, faith, identity, purpose, and the courage to live fully alive. If you're ready to break free from what has held you back, renew your mind, and walk in truth, freedom, and wholehearted purpose, you are in the right place. In this episode, everybody, we're going to be talking about how you can look really strong and still be carrying pain. Have you ever had that experience? Here's something I've learned, that there's many high capacity women who are praised for being strong while secretly carrying deep emotional pain. For me and my business, it's really important that my people understand that they can show up to work as their whole person. I don't expect them to leave their personal life at the door. We are whole people. If you ask your people to come in just with their work self, they're fragmented. That's not their whole, authentic, vulnerable person. And so there's always going to be their separation. There's always going to be this wall because you don't want to know who they are really and what they really have going on. It keeps us from not being able to be effective with each other. It keeps true vulnerability, true connection from actually occurring. Also, when we're trying to act strong and act like some way we don't really feel, we're not really being integritous. We're not being honest and truthful. And we're not then being whole. We're, like I said, being a fragmented part of ourselves. We're stuffing who we really are. We're judging ourselves because if we're keeping it from you, then it's because we don't think, one, that you deserve to hear it, or that you're safe enough to bear it, or that I'm going to still be accepted if you knew this about me. And the reality is, man, it's such a disservice to ourselves and to each other, because then it keeps us from really deeply, authentically connecting with each other. High performers especially hide their pain oftentimes because they feel like, man, I can tell you, as a leader, God will be like, Jen, I want you to share about your addiction and your struggles with it and challenges. And I want you to share openly about how you're learning to move through that. And I'm like, really, God? You want me to share about that? And I own a local business in a pretty small town, and I don't really go around letting people know that I smoke some weed. Okay, God. And so high performers, leaders especially, are hiding what they're really going through. They're hiding the marriage issues that they're experiencing. They're hiding how they're feeling about or what's going on with their health. They're hiding depression, anxiety, severe addiction, suicidal ideation. They're hiding all the judgments that they're holding about themselves and other people. And they're essentially keeping themselves stuck, and they're making themselves sick. They're keeping themselves disconnected from other people and essentially keeping themselves from the blessing that is supposed to come from those sacred connections that we can experience at work. And so I just invite you to, if this might be you, if this resonates for you at all, just to start to try on the idea that what if you did show up authentically? What if you did bring all of yourself through that front door? What if you as a leader shared with other people and other leaders what you might be going through so that you can get some support and start to gain the tools necessary and the connection and everything that you need in order to move through that, so that you too can have healing, so that you can have freedom, so that you can experience healing and joy and be walking fully in your purpose. Some common signs of high capacity people who are secretly carrying deep emotional pain are overworking. A lot of high-powered people will just overwork. They'll just keep overdoing. They don't have a boundary. There's not a lot of personal time. they grind and grind and grind and still always feel like they have to keep the grind up. There is something to be said for when you start a new business, that there is going to be some grind associated with that to get it going. And it's supposed to stop. It's supposed to become more graceful and easy. And so overworking is a common sign. Overgiving. I know for me, this has been a thing. I can just be like, oh, well, I'm going to overgive because I want to be accepted or because I want to be considered good. So I'm going to give when I don't really have it to give, or I'm going to give to a point where it hurts me. And so overgiving, giving is beautiful. We're supposed to be generous, be blessed so that you can give, but don't give to the point where it hurts you. Another common sign is controlling. Oh, baby, do I've got experience with control. Anytime we're in a controlling state, it's because we're terrified. And so we'll find ourselves as leaders controlling other people, controlling situations, because we're so fearful about something falling down or something not working out or somebody not liking us or not having a relationship. So control. And then when we control the people in our life, it's almost like it gives us the total opposite that we're trying to create. In control, we're trying to keep that relationship. We're trying to be happy. But what it actually creates is the opposite. It creates them not really wanting to be in relationship, and it creates a lot of toxicity and things like that. Other common signs are irritability or being like really reactive. That's definitely been true for me. Just recently, over the past couple of weeks, I can tell you that I found myself very irritable. I went through some time where I had to release 2 people in my business and have a really serious talk with somebody else. And I love my people. And so it created some stress and some dis-ease in my body. And then I found myself really irritable. Oftentimes, irritability comes when I'm not taking care of myself. When I'm not drinking enough water, I'm not sleeping enough, I'm not eating well, I'm just overworking, or I'm overgiving, or I'm controlling. When I've got a lot of judgment about other people, a judgment about myself, I'll find myself irritable. Also, emotional numbness, coping, doing addictive behavior to numb our emotions. Those are some common signs of people who are high capacity, but we're still carrying some deep emotional pain. If we have feelings that we don't really want to be feeling, is because there's some healing that needs to take place there. So numbing the emotion, there's just no purpose there. You're just trying to be comfortable. It's going to create a lot of suffering for you. So emotional numbness, people who are just really non-feeling people, or who ignore their feeling, or you can tell they're not okay and you ask them if they're okay and they're like, yeah, I'm fine. That's somebody who's experiencing some emotional numbness. Also, people pleasing. Anytime we feel like, oh, I've got to please these people so that I can be accepted, or I want them to like me, or whatever the case may be, choosing what they want or what you think they're going to want to hear, or how you think they're going to want you to be, that's all people pleasing. And when we do that, we're choosing to go against ourselves. Like if we have a feeling or if we have a want or a desire within ourselves, it's for us to become aware of that, to try that on, to honor that. And when we go against ourselves to please somebody else, we're hurting ourselves. We're choosing them and not ourselves. And there's just no long-term positive solutions that happen when we're operating in that space. Other common signs are perfectionism. We're not meant to be perfect. We talk about this. Being perfect, we're not perfect all the time. So if you find somebody out there that's just showing up perfect all the time, well, it's because they're hiding. They're hiding. They're choosing not to be vulnerable. Nobody is perfect, and that's just the truth. Having strength without healing becomes exhausting because it's not true. You can't really be resilient. You can't really be strong if you don't have a foundation of love and a foundation of connection with yourself, with others, and with God. So strength without healing becomes really exhausting. You begin pouring from your undertow rather than your overflow. You don't find ways that fill you up with joy. And so you're just constantly being strong and constantly having a barrier and not being authentic. And that's depleting. Honesty really becomes the beginning of freedom. When we can be really honest and have self-awareness about what we're doing, how we're showing up, and how we're feeling, that's where true freedom lies. That's when we can begin to process and deal with it and surrender it. If we don't know it's there, there's nothing to surrender because you're keeping it stuffed down. And it's going to show up in ways like getting stuck in your body. It's going to create actual dis-ease or disease inside of your body. When we numb our emotions or we keep them stuffed down, your body holds that and it creates your cells to dysfunction. And that's where disease comes from in our body. So being aware gives us the freedom to live fully and authentically in our purpose. So I just want to remind you, there's 3 key teaching points here. Remember that survival can look like strength, but you're just in survival mode. Your nervous system's dysregulated. There's no real rest and recovery. You're either in fight, flight, or freeze, and you're creating dysregulation in your whole entire life. You're having issues with connection because you're not being authentic. You're not showing up as you really are. It lacks integrity. You're not being truthful, so you can't have the awareness so that you can surrender and move through into your healing. We're not meant to be in survival. We're meant to be in rest and recovery. We're meant to live abundant, joy-filled, and purpose-filled lives. Success does not mean you are healed. There's a lot of successful people out there that we would judge as successful or define as successful. And though there's a lot of people out there that are super unhealed, that have a lot of things underneath the surface that they won't really ever let you see. You know, the thing is that we think we're hiding, but people can see. God wants freedom for you. He doesn't want you to just go through the motions. He doesn't want you to live a life you're not meant to live. He wants you to step fully into love. He wants you to step fully into His power and what He can do in your life. And He wants you to experience joy and connection and freedom and healing. I would love you to take a moment and ask yourself, where do you identify that you might be surviving instead of living? Just because you're functioning does not mean you're free. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of the Wholehearted Impact Podcast. If this encouraged you, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs hope today. For more resources, coaching, speaking, and my book, visit wholeheartedimpact.com.